Welcome back. The ANC's National Disciplinary Committee of Appeal has upheld the decision to expel former President Jacob Zuma from the party. Zuma was kicked out of the ANC in July after he was found guilty of violating Section 25 of its constitution by supporting another organization while still a member of the ANC. Zuma broke ranks and formed the Umkhonto weSizwe party in December, saying he no longer identifies with the ANC under the leadership of Cyril Ramaphosa. We're now joined by the ANC spokesperson, Mahlengi Bhengu-Motsiri. Thank you so much for joining us in studio this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Is this finally the end of the road for the relationship between former President Jacob Zuma and the ANC?
Yes, certainly. From the perspective of the ANC, it is the end of the road because, the appeal this committee has agreed with the National Disciplinary Committee on the strength of the argument by the ANC's chief presenter.
So at this point, no, there can't be any other approach that's taken. The former president can't go through any other structure whatsoever. This is it. It's done.
Absolutely. Not any other structure in the ANC. And we really are quite happy to bring an end to this chapter that's been ongoing and creating some uncertainty from some of our members and our supporters, and more broadly South Africans. We are quite comfortable with we can put this behind us, and as the ANC can continue with the task of renewing ourselves, of self-cleansing, also the task of governance, where we are governing, and also as part of our role in the government of national unity, that we can hasten to bring services to the people of South Africa and not to be sidetracked by this matter.
And while you're saying, you can finally put this matter behind you, it does also seem that your former president is the gift that keeps on giving sometimes, because he just does remain a thorn in the ANC. Because looking at the general elections in May, a huge chunk of your support base went to him, but also post that there's still senior leaders and members of your party who are being recruited by his party and leaving you for the MK party.
No, certainly. I mean, it is something that we are looking at. But why are we looking at it? We are looking at it from the perspective that the ANC has always been central to the exercise of democracy. There is no way we can speculate about whether there are leaders that are following Mr. Jacob Zuma to where he is. We can't control that, but what we can control is to ensure that the ANC demonstrates to the people of South Africa that the renewal of the ANC is on course. In fact, this is a testament to the fact that the renewal agenda is not just something we're talking about, it is something that we're acting on. Because one of the key tenets of this organizational renewal is discipline. One of the key tenets of this organizational renewal is anything that fights against corruption and crime. And most certainly anything that is going to be distracting us from focusing on those important things. We believe that that is why we're quite comfortable that we've put this behind us, certainly from the perspective of the African National Congress.
For some of your supporters who've watched this play out as well, from December 16 already, when President Jacob Zuma was already making some utterances against the ANC already, some felt that the ANC took a long time to nip that in the bud. And in fact, I think it was the SG, Fikile Mbalula, who had said, we'll deal with this matter after the elections. And it seemed that the matter dealt with the ANC during and while the elections were going on too, and post the elections. And while you can't control who's going to still leave the party, possibly, are you at all concerned that there still will be this mass exodus?
We certainly are not concerned about that. And one of the reasons we're not concerned about this, and we say this with utmost humility, the reason why we're not concerned is because we are hard at work to rebuild the organization, renewing our membership system, making sure that those people that join the ANC out of their own accord. They understand the aims and objects of the ANC. We are introducing political development and ideological and intellectual development among our members all over the country, having been training trainers in order to roll out a massive political education program, which forms the backbone of our renewal initiative, we are busy with improving how we communicate with society, how we communicate with our people. So a whole host of things are being done to really build the ANC, to take it back to where it's been, and to acknowledge some of our failures, but to turn those failures around into successes. And that is what we focused on. We focused on ensuring that our deployees in government, those that represent the ANC in government, acquit themselves as excellently as possible in bringing services to our people, working closely with communities. We're already seeing successes arising out of the 6th administration. In fact, I do wish to dispel this myth that the 7th administration, GNU, has delivered things in the past 150 days or so. That is impossible if you understand the government's cycle of planning in terms of the medium-term expenditure framework of government. What is being implemented right now and what it is that we can lay claim to it as successes as South Africans is a product of an annual performance plan of the 2023-2024 financial year. So we are quite excited about the fact that a lot of positive results are being yielded, arising out of the work that was being done by the ANC-led 6th administration. We're going to be reporting about all of these things in a greater detail in the course of next week.
And also, earlier when we started speaking, you said, you're quite glad this process is over. It did quite extend as well itself. There were a few what one would call Stalingrad tactics that were used as well. It did have a knock-on effect on the party as well. If you could just describe that impact internally.
Certainly, it has had a knock-on effect. The fact that we have had some of our senior members as well as our ordinary members that have left web to join Umkhonto weSizwe party, that itself, any loss of a member, any loss of a supporter is something that has to concern any liberation movement worth its salt. You cannot be arrogant about that. And the level of confusion about the relationship between MK Party and the African National Congress, certainly on the strength of Mr. Zuma's own utterances that sought to create this confusion, because I think that's always been a deliberate thing. We cannot suggest that that has not had a knock-on effect on the African National Congress. The electoral outcome, which placed the ANC at 40% of the national vote share, is a lesson for the ANC. Of course, we still remain the largest party in government, but there are certain serious lessons that have been learned about this, and part of which is the need to accelerate service delivery, part of which the need to regain trust and confidence by the people of South Africa. They must see the ANC of our forefathers in us. They must see the ANC of Nelson Mandela in the current generation. So how we conduct ourselves as individual leaders and members, but as a body collectively, ought to send that message of renewal. We're quite confident that we are steadily moving and pushing very strong, even against all odds, to restore discipline in the organization, to restore the kind of ethics and the values that should be synonymous with an organization with the ANC's history and the ANC's historical and founding values.
So what does this expulsion mean, essentially? Does this mean that, oh no, of course now he's no longer a member of the ANC and then he goes on his merry way, even though, even in the letter that you've written to him, you explained which rules of the ANC's constitution were breached, and these are quite serious rules that were breached as well. Do you find that the punishment fits the crime?
Oh, well, of course, we've got competent bodies to adjudicate this matter that have adjudicated this matter, such as the NDC as well as the National Disciplinary Committee of Appeal. These are quite competent bodies and quite quasi-independent of the mainstream National Executive Committee that leads the ANC in between conferences. These bodies are made up of veterans and stalwarts of our struggle. They're made up of competent lawyers within the fold of the ANC, and a number of people that are responsible for protecting the constitution of the ANC. So from that perspective, we are absolutely sure that what has been done has absolutely been accurate in terms of sending out a lesson to any other member of the ANC that considers violating the rules, the laws, and the values of the African National Congress. That is the reason why, if you look at the president having issued 53 SIU proclamations to recover funds that were, illegally taken away from the people of South Africa towards service delivery, but pocketed by individuals, some of which may very well be our members and our leaders. The very fact that the ANC has encouraged any of its members that have been found being charged by the courts of law to step aside and allow the organization to focus on the task of rebuilding. That is a testament to the fact that we take our responsibility to the people of South Africa as seriously as we should be. In fact, I would say never have been a time. And we're thankful for some of these lessons, including the conduct of Jacob Zuma, because in his own conduct, he's defined himself outside of the organizational renewal tenets of the ANC. And anyone who conducts themselves in a manner that he has conducted himself would face the very same National Disciplinary Committee and the NTCA. The argument that we took long, it may very well be correct, but it's a case of tactics. We were facing a very strong and a big election. And we were doing that against groundswell of views that suggested that the ANC had not performed to the required expectation of the people of South Africa. So we were working towards restoring that hope, but also we needed to win the election so that the task of transformation can continue. We were not willing to be defocused from that task and focus on Jacob Zuma. And it is for that reason that we've managed the process in the way that we have done. The second reason is that the ANC ought not to be litigated because it has not followed its own constitution properly and be hasty about taking decisions when the entire due process has not been followed. I know that many of our members were saying, why don't you just expel this person? He's already defined himself outside of the ANC family. But
do you not regret not doing that before the elections? Before there was this confusion, before the MK showed itself to be the force that it had become?
No regret whatsoever. It was important for us to be dutiful to our constitution, because if you don't do so, any person that is aggrieved by the process that you have followed are well within their rights to approach the courts, and then you have a never-ending saga. And we wanted to make sure that when it is done in accordance with our constitution. It allows for us to focus on the work that we are focusing on now, which is governance on the one hand, which organizationally is rebuilding on the other hand, and we are in full swing. And I think in the fullness of time, it will become clear how the ANC has taken heed of the message that came from the people of South Africa on the 29th of May, 2024.
We're out of time, but quickly before I let you go, you're speaking about lessons learned as well. 2026 is coming. Are you ready for the competition of the MK that clearly is serious competition for the ANC? It looks like Jacob Zuma really pulled a rug over your organization.
Well, I won't say that the ANC was not aware, and certainly the senior leadership of the ANC was not aware about these mandarins. But we don't act on the basis of what's being planned in the corners. In relation to the upcoming local government election and the ANC's National General Council that's coming up sometime next year, all the way to our 56th National Conference in 2027 and the general election in 2029. Those four critical milestones, we're already looking at them. And we're looking at them with a view to taking an organization to the National General Council that is in good health, is in good shape. And that is why we focused on organization building work that we're doing. We are recruiting members, but we're recruiting them on the basis of sound values and sound procedures. And so I can say that we have no fear in as far as our processes are concerned. We are determined to be looked at in a positive light by the people of South Africa, also on the basis of what our deployees are doing in government. We have put in place what we call a performance and accountability framework, where all our deployees are going to be subjected to a scorecard in terms of their performance. Whether you're a deputy minister, whether you're a speaker of parliament, whether you're a minister, we are going to be following very closely about how our deployees do the work in a way that makes the ANC proud and the South Africans proud of the ANC correcting its own mistakes, but more importantly, living and being true to its historical values as the largest liberation movement on the continent, as well as the largest liberation movement in South Africa.
Thank you so much for your time. But as for now, to confirm your relationship with Jacob Zuma, the ANC, completely over, no love back, no way of reconciling. It is completely done, 6 feet under and buried. Done
and buried, we move on.
Thank you so much, Mahlengi Bhengu-Motsiri, who is the ANC's national spokesperson. There you have it. I'm speaking on that decision, of course, by the disciplinary committee to uphold Jacob Zuma's expulsion from the organization.